Good morning. We are going to show you how to properly close a purchase order in share that has a remaining balance. So it's these are expired purchase orders from the prior year that need to be reduced to zero and then completed or closed. And then we'll show you what that process is like if the PO was already reduced, fully spent, and then you just need to complete and close it. So we show you two examples. The first one will have a balance, and you want to release that balance to put it back to the budget, to put it back to the contracts if you had a contract attached, and just to kind of relieve those balances, complete the purchase order process and close it out, which is required in order for the state to properly close our books on the fiscal year in a couple weeks. And right now we're talking about the prior year, a PO from the prior year. So we're in July, and you finish making all your payments, but these are applicable to the prior fiscal year, which ended June 30th. So we want to close all those out before the books close to clean up the system. So that's what we're going to show you how to do today. Okay. All right. So we're going to go into an environment that's not live in production, but it's a mirror copy of what you all will see in production. And we're going to use purchase orders from one of the business units within the state. Okay. So we're going to hop out, go into our environment, log in. So the first thing we're going to do now, there's a handful of ways you can determine what POs need to be completed and closed. You can run a query, you can run a report, you can just browse the purchasing module for each of the POs. So you just have to pick one of those options, and I've already done that. So I have two POs here that I'm going to show you how to do these processes on. Okay. All right. So go search for the PO that you're going to work on. Go to your menu, go to purchasing within the menu. Go to purchase orders, go to your add and update option. Type in go to find existing value, then type in the PO number. So in this case, we're going to do 2301091238. This is the PO that I'm working on. If you know your numbers, type it in. And it should be for your business unit, your agency, obviously. Okay, so this is what we're going to use. It's a PO from last fiscal year, from fiscal year 23. We have now moved into 24, but we need to reduce. And you can see there's a balance by looking at this encumbrance line. There's a balance of $2.40. Immaterial, most people don't care about $2.40, but you need to reload that back to the budget. And this is a contract, back to the contracts module, before you do any completing and closing to properly. So the contracts module is populated properly, so your budgets have the actual remaining balance in case you needed to make more payments or your reversions, that kind of thing. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do to get rid of this $2.40 balance, and there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can read the job aids, you can look at Oracle, you can look on the share website, but this is the easiest way to do it without ever needing DFA approval. If you do it wrong, it's going to be pending, which you can't close and complete a pending PO, and then you're going to have to ask DFA for approval, even though the PO deadlines have been well past. Okay, so easiest thing to do, highlight the price, delete it, click refresh. You're going to get an error message, in essence, telling you you can't delete this because you've already made some payments. It's going to tell you how much has been fully matched and expensed right there. You need to make sure that all your payments are posted. There's nothing unapproved. Like, you can do that by looking at the document status, which I did earlier. So I know there's nothing pending on this, but you don't want to go through this process. If there's anything pending, you need to get all of that stuff approved and paid before you do this process. Okay. All right. So I'm going to copy that amount because that's telling me exactly how much has been spent and matched. You could have run a query to figure that out as well, but this is the easiest thing to do. So copy that, click OK, paste that price into the price box. You can click your tab to move over. And then the system's going to tell you this action will create a change order. You want to click yes, because we are doing a change order. We are reducing the PO down to spend, and then we'll close out after that. Okay, so you want to click yes. Now, you want to click save at this point because you're not sure what's going to happen yet, right? So click save, and you may get this error message. And it's what it's telling you is that the accounting period attached to this purchase order is no longer open. The state closes accounting periods on a monthly basis. And this one probably has a July of 22 date because that's when the PO was created, and we haven't done a change order since then. So there's nothing wrong with this message. If you get it, you need to address it. If you don't get it, you probably don't need to worry about it. But we know this is an older PO. It was created back in July of last year. That accounting period is long closed. So we need to change the accounting period to an open period before we can process this change. So click OK, go into your header details. When that pops up, you can see the accounting date down here on the right-hand side. If you're doing this throughout the same fiscal year, you can just use a current date. But since this PO is a fiscal year 23 PO with the fiscal year 23 funding stream, we need to keep the accounting and the budget dates all in the same fiscal year, so the system doesn't have any craziness. So you want to change this to June 30th at this point and you want 2023, sorry. June 30th, 2023. That period is still open for a couple more weeks. So you want to put it in that period. If you do it in the current period, you'll probably get a budget error because it would be the accounting date not matching with the bud ref in class on the funding stream. Okay, so change that to 6/30, click OK, save it again. I always like to click save a few times so you don't lose your work. And you can see we're still approved. Never kicked it out of approved status. It's still approved. And as long as your budget checking process is successful, you'll never need DFA approval to do these reductions. Every year it happens, folks think they need our approval, but it's because they're messing with something else or changing other dates or messing with the amounts, which trigger DFA approval. But you don't need it in this case. So let's go ahead and budget check to release that budget. And we'll let it spin. And while it spins to budget check, we'll pause the video. Okay, so we now have a successful budget check. You can see the budget status is valid. It's still approved. Never needed DFA approval. Your balance on your encumbrance is now 0. So that's what you're looking for. Now, you still have to finish the process by completing and closing the PO through the workbench, through the buyer's workbench, if you have access to do that. Before you can do that, it needs to be dispatched. So PO status approved isn't final. Final is dispatched. That means it's ready for spending. You can source it if you need to, those kinds of things. In this case, since we zeroed it out, what we want to be able to do is complete and close it and archive it. So you have to let the systematic process run to flip that to dispatch. So we'll pause the video, we'll wait for the system, and it happens every, I'm not exactly sure, but 15, 20 minutes or so in the system. So we'll wait a few minutes until the system triggers that to dispatch, and then I can show you how to do the buyer's workbench portion to close it out. So we'll pause the video again and wait for the system to complete, and then we'll be back. Okay, so we're back. The system completed its process, and now you can see that the PO we were working on is dispatched and valid, and that's what we want. So from here, now we need to do the final complete and close process, which is what's required for year-end deadlines by August 7th, I believe. Okay, you can't just leave it sitting here with the zero balance and dispatch. It needs to be completed, so it's kind of completed, archived, and stored away. You can still access it, but it's just not active and valid on the GL, on the commitment control, and taking up extra space. Okay. So we'll go to the buyer's workbench. And again, you have to have security access to do this. Normally your level two designee, CFO designee supervisors do most of the closing out because it can mess up things if you do it incorrectly. And if you close things that you shouldn't close, causes messes. So make sure you're going through the right approval process and hierarchical structure at your agency. Okay. And you have to have security access to be able to do these things. So if you don't, it's probably not part of your job role. So you'll have to have someone else do it for you. So when you go back into the purchasing module, under purchase orders, you'll find this buyer's workbench. Click that. If you've never done this before and you're not sure, you have to create a workbench ID every time you come, or the first time you come in here. So create one, all caps. We're just going to call this close FY 23. Okay. Your business unit, name it something, and the next time you come in, it'll be on the list. You can just select this and you don't have to create a new one each time. Okay, so we want to put that PO number, and I thought I copied it, but I didn't, so I have it written down. So the one we did, and in the buyer's workbench, you can search, you can do all kinds of stuff from here, but we're just focusing on the ones we need to work on. So put your PO number in, search for it. Now you'll see it sitting there in dispatch status, and we already know we completed it, right? We zeroed it out, There's no more balance on it. We released the budget, we released the contract amount. Now we just need to complete and close it. So as long as you did everything right, this is an easy process for the most part. So you click the box, you click close, and you got to give it a description. So this is a new workbench ID that we created. So don't forget to put your description. I'll just copy and paste workbench ID as a description. I learned that from Heather Kent in the cash control group. But you can name it whatever you want, give it a description, use all caps, no spaces, but whatever's easier for you to remember. Okay. Now click close again. Now this is what you want to see. You have a not qualified and you have a qualified. If you come in here and the PO that you're trying to complete and close is on the not qualified side, there's a problem. It's either not dispatched, it's there's still a balance on it. There's some kind of problem you have to go back to the PO and figure out, because you can't close it if it's not qualified. In our case, it is qualified, and that's what we're looking to see. Now, since we're doing a prior year and we changed the accounting date earlier to the prior year, I'm going to go ahead and change it again to June 30th. That just keeps all of this activity in the same fiscal year without giving any errors or causing any problems. If you're doing this throughout the fiscal year on POs within the same fiscal year, like, you can use the current dates in open accounting periods, obviously. But I'm trying to keep everything in June because these are FY23, June 30th transactions, and I want them all in the same bucket. Okay, so change that. Click yes. And it's going to say, are you sure you want to do this? Are you really sure? Be sure you're sure. Like, don't make a mistake, because you can't reopen POs after you close them. Okay. So click that, let it spin, let it do its work. And if everything goes well, you shouldn't get any error messages, and your PO will be done. And I highly recommend that you're doing this throughout the year, not waiting until June and July, especially for larger agencies like that have hundreds and thousands of POs. If you wait till June or July and you have that many, you're just never going to get this done by the deadlines. So you should be doing it throughout the year. Even smaller agencies, like when a PO is done, if you've used it all, close it. If there's no more, if there's a balance on it, but you've already made all your payments and it's only halfway through the year, I mean, complete and close it, reduce it, complete and close it. There's no point in leaving POs open if you're not ever going to use them again. This doesn't make sense. So do it throughout the year. You should be like part of a monthly clean process. Every month you go through certain steps on all your accounting functions, and this could be one of them. Okay. So you can see POs in complete status. So this means it's, in essence, it's archived. Like, you can't find it anymore. If you go through the add and update PO section, you can find it in the review information, because that shows you all your prior year stuff. You can still find it there. It's just kind of completed, closed out, meets all the state deadlines, and it's archived and moved to a separate area, and you can still find it if you need to down the road. Okay, so that was example number one. And you notice this never needed approval, because you don't. If you do it right, you're never going to have to ask DFA to approve something, because you don't need us to approve a reduction to zero and closing out if you do it properly. If you mess with any of the other dates, like the PO date, if you go up and down with the amount, if you change anything else, it's going to kick it out of approved status and you won't be successful. But if you follow these steps, you will be. Okay. So back at the PowerPoint, that was the first section. So the second section, I'm just going to show you a PO that already has a zero balance. So you just cut out the first part. You don't have to do the reduction. You can just go complete and close it, because it already has a zero balance. It's dispatched. You don't need to do anything other than close it out. Okay. So go back into your environment, back into share. We'll go back to my home page, go to the navigator, the menu, add and update POs. And we're going to go find the one that I want to close. So search for it by find an existing value, type in your PO number if you know it. Again, you can run a query. There's a lot of different things you can do to find this or to figure this out. And I'm in the wrong section here. Sorry. To see, and you can even go through the workbench and pull up a list of the dispatch POs, but I caution you to be careful, because that's going to show you all the dispatch POs, but not necessarily all the ones with the zero balance. And you don't want to try and complete and close POs with balances because it may not release it to the budget, may not release it to the contract. It might lock up your budget. You got to be careful. Okay. You got to be careful. All right. So this is a PO we're going to work on. Number 2. And you can see no balance. Now let's go make sure. I didn't do this, but I wanted to save this for you all to see. Before you do anything, you want to make sure that those final payments have posted to the GL. Because if there's a payment that maybe you've submitted, it's gone through part of the approval process, but not the whole thing, and it hasn't issued a payment yet, you can't close out the PO until everything is done. And you wouldn't want to, because if there's ever a problem with that or it gets held up in the approval process, you might have to go back and fix something. So you got to be careful. Okay. So click on the document status tab, and it's going to pull up all the documents that are attached to this PO. And what you want to do is click this view all button, because there's 11 here. And you can see it's showing you the vouchers and the payments. And if there's a contract or a requisition, all that will be on here. So this was sourced from a contract, not a rec. So there's not a requisition, but it was sourced from a contract. And then you can see there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vouchers that were created and attached to this. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 payments. 5 vouchers, 5 payments, all make sense. But they're all posted. If you come in here and see any of these are unapproved, unposted, you don't want to complete and close this. But we're good to go now. Everything has posted. Okay. So let's get out of there. Let's go back to the PO. So we're good. So at this point, you don't do anything in the PO. If it's already zeroed out, you don't have to reduce it. You don't mess with anything. We're just going to go complete and close it. So we're going to do that second part of the process I showed you earlier. So let's copy that number. Let's go back to the workbench. So that buyer's workbench under purchasing. You want to make sure you're under the buyer's workbench purchasing, not requisitions. They each have their own workbench. We want to do the purchasing. And let's search for our IDs. I have over 300 IDs, and one of these days I need to stop doing that. So if you just created the one, you'll just have one on your list. Select that every time. I highly recommend that. Do that. Okay. I don't think the one that I created is going to show up because I created so many. There's so many on my list, but we'll just go to this close one. Okay. Now let's put in our PO number that we're working on. Let's search for it. Now you can see it's there. It's dispatched. So all those steps that we took on the one that needed to be reduced have in essence already been done for this PO because we fully matched it. What that means is we've applied all of the payments to that PO to the exact amount. And that one was a professional services contract, which makes sense because usually your contracts are encumbered to the full amount of the contract, and usually you expend that amount. There are times where you may not, but that's usually what happens. So all of that makes sense. You just don't have to do that first part of the process. So we just want to close this one, complete and close it. So we check the box on the line, we click close. And again, here we are, qualified. If it was on the left-hand side, not qualified, stop, go back to the PO and figure out why. Okay, and there's a lot of reasons why it could be. I am still, because this is a fiscal year 23 PO, I'm still going to come in here and change the accounting date back to June 30th of 23 because I want it closed out and I want everything to look or be in the same bucket with the accounting dates, the budget dates, the bud, ref, the class, all the activity, all in fiscal year 23 because that's really what it is. Okay, so change that accounting date. We're going to go back and click yes. It's going to ask you again, are you sure you want to do this? Make sure you're sure. Don't do it incorrectly. Don't do it if you shouldn't do it. Make sure you have proper authorization to do it. Make sure you have proper approvals at your agency to do it. You don't want to make messes. Okay. So we're going to say, yes, we would like to close it. Let it spin and do its thing. And if everything goes well, you shouldn't get any errors. There's no budget to release. You've already spent it all. So we should just be able to complete this without a problem. And there you go. So now the PO is complete, archive done, meets state deadlines, everything is completed for that year. Now, if you made a mistake and you closed something you shouldn't have, you really can't ever go back and reopen it. And that's why I say be very careful on what you do. Okay. So if we go back to our PowerPoint presentation, that was what we were going to work on today. We went through both number 1 and 2. So we showed you how to reduce a PO and go through that process without needing DFA approval if you do it right and follow those steps, and then complete and close the PO. And then the second option, or the second example, was a PO that's already been fully expensed that just needed to be completed and closed. And I just want to point out and really remind you how important following those steps are, because you never will need DFA approval if you do those things the right way. If you don't, you're going to need our approval, and we may not approve it because we don't approve prior purchase orders after a certain date every year. And then it gets to be a bit problematic and messy. So just follow those steps and you won't need our approval, and your budgets will be clean. You'll be able to do your reversions and all that good stuff without a problem. Okay. All right. I hope that was helpful. Have a good day, and keep an eye out for other videos that we post in the future on how the state of New Mexico uses Share, PeopleSoft, Oracle. Thank you.